I'm Dana Perino, and this is Perino on Politics. Welcome to summer. As the heat intensifies in the courtroom for former President Trump, President Biden is getting grilled on the rising costs the warmer months are bringing in. Welcome to Perino on Politics, where we give you everything you need to know from a 30,000-foot view of this week in politics. And joining me today is your crowd favorite. Yes, I know. Finally, he's here. Former Tennessee Congressman, Fox News contributor, and a fellow co-host of The Five, Harold Ford Jr. Let me add wonderful husband and father to that because
he is on TV too.
No, well, see, it's kind of that's a good thing that you asked that. Let's talk about that for a second.
Profusely.
Sometimes they will play a little video, so people can catch a little video, but sometimes not. It's unclear to me actually sometimes, and sometimes
you look great all the time.
I just want to be like, no.
I'm a fat
You should have seen
here.
like 30 minutes ago my hair was in a ponytail and I took it out of a ponytail holder and brushed it. But this is giving our viewers a lot of information. But this is the idea. It's that I just call up my friends who I trust on politics and we talk about the news of the day. And then one of the reasons I wanted to have you today in particular is because I have learned from you to watch and to then learn from you about 3 dates that you look at leading up to a presidential election. Memorial Day, gas prices, 4th of July, cost of the barbecue, and Labor Day are leading up to it, the cost of getting back to school, which is actually more and more expensive as electronics and school fees, sports fees increase. So it was Memorial Day yesterday, and I checked the average price of regular gasoline in a few of the battleground states. So in Arizona, $3.85, Michigan, $3.65, Minnesota, $3.32, Nevada, $4.03, Pennsylvania, $3.7, and Wisconsin, $3.40. So you look at this and you know how people are feeling about inflation, et cetera. For the first Harold Ford Jr. test of the election, how does that look for President Biden?
Well, first, good to be with you.
Thank you.
And good to be with you after Memorial Day. I do think that's a big day. I'm sorry if I'm sweating profusely.
Because it's hot, and you know what? We won't play the video. How about
I had
that?
a big time with my son a little while ago.
Yes, we want to congratulate Hef because he is going to the big-time soccer team.
He's got a big promotion, so we're happy.
And he's the fastest one on the team.
This is, and Dana and Peter have been very supportive. This date, gas and food, critical. And you have to give the advantage, as we see it here today, to President Trump on this first important day. Put aside what people want to say about the politics and legal issues and other issues he may have working against him. I think of the presidential race, there are 2 kinds of presidential races. One is when you have 2 people running for an open seat, and the other is when you have somebody running for a re-elect. And the re-elect is generally a referendum on the economy. The other is as well, but it's more so the re-elect because that person has 4 years of leading things. And President Trump can point back to what things were like.
Yeah, this is a strange election, right? Because it's almost like
2 incumbents.
Yeah, a little bit.
But he was not the president for the last 4 years. In fact, he thinks in some instances, he might think he was the president. He should have been the president the last 4 years. But if you look at the issues here and you look at the states, you pick the 6 battleground states. It only matters what people in those states think about prices, what they think about inflation, what they think about these critical issues, because it's a couple 100,000, if not more or less, fewer or more in those states that will decide it. And the polling data shows President Trump with a consistent lead in these states. It's something to be concerned about on the Democrat side as you think about how people are going to think about their livelihood and their family security. And you mentioned something, that the fees it takes your kids to go back to school, let alone the clothes and the electronics, but just all the other fees, regardless of what school, if you're in a private school, a public school, whatever the school may be, there are fees associated with just about everything your kid does.
Yep.
So this is a date. If I were in the Biden campaign, I think you have to take these things head on. I think the issue of reproductive rights is an important issue and will be. And Republicans are going to have to take that on. But that doesn't mean that Democrats, as James Carville, I think, and others are echoing, should not deal with this issue head on and talk about the things you're going to do to help lower prices. I would ask, I think it's fair. Some say it's not fair to bring in the grocery store chain heads, and bring them in, because when I listen to the local guys in my neighborhood, they talk differently than the bigger chain guys do. Now, I'm not saying either one is bad and one is good, but there has to be some. They're both.
That's a very low margin business, grocery stores.
It is, but if you look at the prices, one has some. But the bigger grocery chains are actually experiencing great profits.
Growth.
So I'm not saying they shouldn't experience great profits, but if the smaller guys are being compressed, the bigger guys are not. They're all taking from the same supply chain. Something else is at work. Now, maybe I don't know enough about the business, but if I were the president, I'd want to know, why is it that you guys have a different margin than these guys do, and why are your profits at record levels when the everyday consumer is not facing record day increases in his or her pocketbook and his or her lifestyle?
But if the market were allowed just to work, would it all work out?
Well,
Because I feel like there's like this idea of the new economy, the new populist economy idea. I'm not for it. I'm just old fashioned. I like the market. But
yeah, but I'm not. But don't get me wrong. I'm not blaming these guys. But there's something. We can't all have it every which way. If there are things that are happening in our economy that that people want to blame the president for, I'd say, look, you should blame me, but let me tell you what's going on here and tell you how I'm thinking about answering these questions.
yeah, you know what he doesn't use at all, and I don't understand it. Yeah, there's a lot of things he doesn't use. A cabinet meeting. Like a cabinet meeting, there's nothing like that to focus the mind and drive a message for a week or two, right? I would say, when you get an economic number like you've had in the past couple of weeks, I'd say everybody in the cabinet room at 8 a.m., right? Let's call it 8:30, just be fair. 8 a.m. Monday morning. I'm going to go around. I want to hear from every single one of you what your department is doing to help the American people deal with inflation as we try to get it to come down.
And why not dispatch them? Every Monday morning you have a meeting with them. They're coming back and they're giving you reports on where all 15 or 12 or 20 of them have been.
Like have a parade. They come in. Here's a small business lady. It's the most astonishing thing. Like, honestly, I feel like the cabinet is in witness protection except for Pete Buttigieg.
Right. The Secretary of Buttigieg is always out, and a lot of times I like him and respect him. I don't always understand what he's talking about, but all of them should be out talking about these things, not just when there's a crisis. But you asked me a basic question, and I'm not trying to deflect. This date here, President Trump, Memorial Day, when you think about a reelect and the referendum on the economy, President Biden needs to address this more directly. He needs to have answers that will lead people to have confidence in him, on top of all the other things he's going to talk about in the campaign. And I don't think that I'm not minimizing anything that they want to talk about, including President Trump's behavior after the election. But you have to understand, most Americans don't have the opportunity at this moment to be thinking about those things. They're thinking about school is out. What are my kids doing for the summer? Are they going to be occupied? Remember, a lot of kids, the guaranteed 2 meals they get during the September or mid-August to May is at school. So you have a large percentage of kids in rural areas and urban areas where this is an issue. Now, there are initiatives and programs around the country to try to address some of this. But if you're a parent, you're worried about that. Some parents are having, I'm blessed to not have to be concerned about that, but there are a lot of parents who have that concern. And if you're the president, these are the things you should be talking about.
One of the things that I'm sure they're talking about is like David Axelrod, who worked for Obama. He's a Democrat. He does want Biden to win. It just seems increasingly like when you hear from him, and he's one of the rare ones that will consistently speak on the record. He said this week, he asked, can Democrats repeat Biden's main message? And his answer was, I don't think they can, because he doesn't know what it is.
I thought it was a great question, and we talk about it a lot on your show in the 5. Where it is amazing how when Vice President Harris and others are out and they're asked the question about President Biden as well, asked about what's happening or what's going on, they don't seem to have a coherent, let alone cogent answer about really anything that is certainly not consistent. Carville had, it's the economy, stupid.
And he said this weekend, stop focusing so much on Gaza and stop working on student loans for people that graduated from Harvard. And
art history. Don't remember, my sister's an art history major, but I think it's great. But this is not what you said. You're the one that educated me to this. I didn't think about it as pointedly and clearly or with any specificity. Till one of the days on the show, you talked about, are they providing loan forgiveness and help to people who bought F-150s? To people
or like my cousin plumbers, who bought a what's it called? It's like a backhoe type thing. Anyway, it's very expensive piece of equipment.
To be able to call
great roads.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, it's interesting. The gaps in our economy are really engineers who are plumbers and electricians, nurses, teachers, family doctors, and people who can fix things. And every 10, 15 years, those cycles change. That's where the help should be given. That's where the focus. I mean, some people don't like to provide aid or forgiveness, and I respect it. I disagree with them. But if we're going to do it,
but if you're going to do it right, don't just do it for.
Do it the right way.
Like graduate school.
Do it the right
crazy.
way. You can't subsidize it.
And also, if you're going to do it, then also force change at the universities.
Yeah, then all of that, the university. But what it really focused on was the fact that the economic message. The country has, unfortunately, over the last 10 years, become even more economically balkanized from the standpoint that people whom there are three levels of investors and three levels of income earners. There are people who are in the middle class, there are people who are wealthy, and there are people who are just super rich. And the people who are super rich look at all of us and say, that's terrible, what you guys are going through. And the market went up day after, it goes up every week, and they're real beneficiaries there. There's some people who every day who don't enjoy those benefits.
No.
And it's hard to make that the only barometer. And even when we look at unemployment numbers, there's a difference in how people are living. There's a difference in how people are being educated. And there are unfortunately growing differences in how people earn money, people who earn it by just investing. And I'm not begrudging any of this, but we have to be mindful of this as we think about solutions in our economy and in our marketplace.
One other thing before we take a quick break, and that is that I woke up this morning, and Politico Playbook is something that I read all the time, and this was the headline: full-blown freakout. And you actually had Democrats on the record, finally.
I saw that
Usually
too.
It's anonymous, but on the record saying, this isn't, oh my God, Mitt Romney might become president. It's, oh my God, the democracy might end if Trump wins. This guy is a longtime Democratic strategist. He said there's still a path to win this, but they don't look like a campaign that's embarking on that path right now. If the frame of this race is what was better, the 3.5 years under Biden or 4 years under Trump, we lose that every day of the week and twice on Sunday. So is as Axelrod calls them, the bedwetters of the Democratic Party, I mean, are they changing the sheets?
Some of them probably are. And one of the reasons that they should be, some of the things these guys say I agree with, but a lot of it I don't. But I agree with the underlying premise we should be concerned. The thing that concerns me as I look at those 6 states is that there's a feeling, I think, amongst some Democrats and even some in the campaign for Mr. Biden that traditional Democratic voters are just going to come home.
Right.
That black voters in particular, who have been the most loyal, dependable, and I think the smartest group of Democratic voters, because if you think about in the primaries of past, black voters gave us Bill Clinton. They lifted him up in the party. They lifted Joe Biden up in the party.
Barack Obama.
And lifted up Barack Obama as well. But I didn't consider Hillary her progressive. I mean, I think if you look at the progressives in the party, black voters have saved us from them in the past. Black men, if you look at these polling data, there's a flirtation going on with Donald Trump that seems to be a lot more serious than a flirtation. They seem to be willing and ready to be not only open to some of that, what he's talking about, but supportive of it. And I don't think you can just go to the old playbook and think it's
all going to
tell
work
them
out.
Get out the vote and tell them the NAACP record, or nothing against NAACP or the Urban League. I love those organizations and their leaders. But these men and women, these men in particular, are thinking about their families, they're thinking about their neighborhoods, they're thinking about their communities. They need to dig in and understand who these men are, what they do for a living. I think sometimes in politics we think of black people, and particularly black men. Some people do, and even a lot of my own party think of them. They have a stereotypical portrait of them, and I'm here to tell you that's not who this group is. This is a smart, educated, entrepreneurial. Some of them business owners themselves.
And they're trying to make better lives for their children.
Who are entirely open to the idea of the promise of America and are open to the idea that maybe Donald Trump is that person. Now, I don't believe that, but I understand how they could come to that conclusion if there's nothing coming from the other side but the same old stale campaign methods of the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s.
I haven't seen you since President Trump had that rally in the Bronx
I thought it was very smart. I think Democrats who were on air that day and the day before and the day after saying he lost, I think the number was, he lost, the margin was 60 or 70 points maybe in the Bronx, and maybe even larger than that in the last election. And what I was trying to explain to these people who think they know politics, you don't understand what he's doing. You and I understand this, Dana. We come from the business.
I think it's so smart.
If he just peels off 5 to 10 points there, and is able to and energize the vote in upstate New York by 5 to 10 points, this is a dead heat in New York.
What about the videos that were on social media that all sorts of people saw that they wouldn't have seen otherwise?
No doubt about it. But right. So I'm just looking at the New York part. Then there's the outside of it. People say you walk through an airport, you see on the screen Donald Trump in the Bronx. You don't necessarily stay and watch 12 minutes of it or 8 minutes of it.
But you go,
You're going to work and you see a headline in the paper, Trump visits the Bronx. Whether you're black, whether you're an independent voter, so black voters and independents in these 6 states are the up for grab. I've tried to tell people, including, again, a lot of people in the industry who think they know a lot about politics. I don't know a lot about politics, but I know numbers. If all independent voters are and swing voters are in any election, are the voters who actually vote for you. And if black voters who traditionally have been Democratic voters swing to vote for a Republican, guess what? They're the swing voters of 2024.
That's right.
And if you have a static vision of what an independent or for that matter swing voter is, you're going to find yourself swinging to a loss sometimes. And this race is early. We're still early in the race, but it feels like we're long in the race because we've known the candidates for a while on both sides. But if Democrats don't awaken to this reality that you can't just do the same old stuff you've done. There was good stuff 8 years ago, but you don't win today. If I came in here with an 8-year-old or 12-year-old piece of technology, it's not going to work up against your current technology. And that's what I think some of the Democrats are missing, particularly when it comes to black voters and even maybe when it comes to independent voters. Now, having said this, in fairness, the last 2 election cycles, Democrats have done okay. They're special in 23 because of reproductive rights. But this is a presidential race. You've made the point on the show before. This is Trump versus Biden again. And they have a 99.9% name recognition, awareness about them.
There was a story in the Washington Post today, and we'll end on this for this segment, with this woman. She said, I'm just choosing between the lesser of 2 evils. It's a terrible way to go in. I mean, but if you were looking at enthusiasm for a candidate, Trump wins that one. Like for voters who say they are voting for their candidate rather than against the other guy, Trump is also up on that one as well. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. And we are back with Perino on Politics. Harold, does it matter in this election who President Trump picks as a vice president? I
think so. I think that if he chooses someone that that will make voters say, wow, I didn't think he had that in him. I didn't think he could reach, because we have this view of Trump as being he's for only Trump. He's going to pick someone that is totally for Trump. And he's going to pick someone, again, that is completely for Trump. And you want someone for you for your running mate. But you want to show people, like when he got elected and he picked some of those people in the cabinet the first go around, I was impressed with some of those picks.
Yeah, he hated them, though.
He didn't.
Fired a couple of them, too.
He did fire a couple of them, but I was surprised he had that in him. I think this go around especially, and I'll say it for this reason. If you look at the states where Nikki Haley closed primaries after March 6th, she didn't score less than 9%. She scored as high as 19 or 20 in two of those battleground states. She got 18 in I think 17 in Pennsylvania, 18 in Arizona. He can't win if those people don't come back. This is his Achilles heel. Black voters are Achilles heel for Biden in terms of his base, and you've got to get the Haley. You got to get those voters back.
Do you think it matters that she said she'll vote for him? She said that last week.
Well, I think definitely it doesn't hurt. I'm not sure it brings all 18% of them. And it's the 2 states. The other states are relevant, but the 2 states where it's most critical, the battleground states there. So. Number one. Number two, because both these candidates will be 79 or higher if they're elected, or when they take office. Or I think President Trump's 70, he'll be 79 next year. I think. Actually, I'm not sure when his birthday is. I
think it's November. But I'm not positive.
I think it's super. So they'll both be in almost 80 years old. One will be 83. If you get a call about someone who's 80 years old tomorrow morning and they say, guess what?
Yeah.
You won't believe the person passed. You're not going to be shocked. You're going to be sad and disappointed.
Right.
And if it's your family, you're going to be devastated to an extent, but you're not going to be surprised. So people are going to look at the VP choices. So if I thought one of the more effective things that Haley said at the end of her campaign was, she's like, this is about me and Kamala Harris. Now, in that Republican primary, that resonated. Our polling data shows that it may resonate with other voters as well. So I think whom he picks could have a real impact in those 6 states. And if he goes and picks someone outside of his comfort zone, does that make an independent voter say, wow, enough of them? Say, the Haley voters in Arizona and Pennsylvania, for them to say, you know what? Especially if he chose Nikki Haley. I have to say, Nikki Haley, I think, is the Trump-Haley ticket would be a formidable ticket.
I just wonder, though, if Trump were to pick Haley, I'm not saying that I know this, it's just a raising a question. So he needs to get the Haley voters to vote for him, but if he picks Haley, does he lose some of the hardcore people that don't like her? I doubt it.
I think that's
even as I say that out loud, I'm like, no.
That's always the risk. But look, I'm not. I try to call balls and strikes. And I think this would be if I were in that campaign, and I'm voting for Joe Biden. But if I were in that campaign, I would be bracing myself for that kind of a pick. And what do you do if he makes that kind? And what impact does that have? Does that have on voters who may be reluctant? Because understand, part of our strategy, Democrat strategy, is to point to some of the chaos and dysfunction around him. And does that mitigate that? Does that amplify that? And if it doesn't amplify it, what do you do to counter that? That's what I would be thinking long and hard about if I were in that campaign. So the succinct answer is yes. I think it matters.
What do Democrats fear more, RFK or Cornel West?
So I think it all depends on the state.
I'm sorry if I say that it's 30,000 foot, and then sometimes I get notes from friends saying, "What are you talking about?" So RFK Jr. Most people would know him as the third-party candidate who's trying to get on enough ballots and get enough polls to get at least on the debate stage, and it looks like he just might do that for June 27th, the end of this month.
You think he's going to get on the stage for June 27th?
I do.
So I don't
he's
think
one poll away. And he's one poll in one state away.
So he's now in enough states to win. Wow, I didn't realize that.
Well, for whatever that requirement is for that, whatever the standard was for the debate, yeah, he's close. And then there's Cornel West, who does have it's not like he's going to get 10%, but if he gets 2%, in Michigan, Minnesota.
So, yeah, it depends on the state. If both of them are on the ballot or one of them are on the ballot in the state, I mean, Dr. West has an appeal. He certainly his politics are way to the left of President Biden's. And the question is that appeal to whom does that appeal to? And are there enough in Wisconsin or Minnesota or Michigan, wherever
just as maybe even as a protest vote.
Right. And RFK, remember, President Trump went to the Libertarian Convention and got booed.
But he went.
On the state. No, but he only went because RFK went, and he didn't. I think he wanted to ensure that RFK would not get that line on their ballot, be their nominee, and he would at that point he would have certainly satisfied that one of the thresholds that you have to be on the debate stage because he'd be on enough states to win the presidency. I think RFK cuts both ways. Cornel West in one or two states taking 0.5%, 1.5%, 2%, because that vote would definitely go to Biden, the Cornel West vote. I cannot imagine they're Trump voters or Haley voters who say, because it could be a protest vote for RFK. I could see an equally powerful protest vote in some states from Haley voters. So I'm voting for RFK because I can't vote for Biden. But I don't see any West voters saying, gosh, if I don't vote for Cornel West, I'm voting for
Trump.
For Trump. They would all be Biden voters.
Biden, okay.
So it depends on the state, I think. But the RFK thing, it slices both ways. If he makes the stage June 27th, that would be. I mean, I'd be so curious to see the polling after that, because I think that first poll will tell us who's going to win the election or not. Because if he takes whomever he takes from the most is going to.
I could be wrong
in the 6 states that you mentioned.
I could be wrong that he's going to make it, but my gut instinct is that he will. And then that's certainly interesting. A quick one here, House and Senate. Did you see the polls this weekend that showed that the Senate Democrats, who have a tough year this year defending a lot of states, but the incumbents that are running for re-election in the Senate on the Democratic side of things kind of hanging in there, even though Biden is way down.
What it reminds me of, Dana, a little bit is that even the 2016 election, all those battleground states, the Republican Senate candidates really, really hung in there and saved face. And in fact, I think they were as responsible for helping Trump get over the finish line in some of those key states because their numbers held high. And in this instance here, it could very well be something that works for
Biden's favor.
In President Biden. Because if those people come out and want to vote for Sherrod Brown, they want to vote for John Tester, but if they come out, it's likely we're going to lose Montana on the presidential side. But if you look at Pennsylvania, you look at these key states, you look at Sherrod Brown. I mean, I don't think we win Ohio, but the real question is in Pennsylvania. Can Trump, does Biden do well there? But remember, most of these guys that are up, these Democrats, they've been around for a long time. They got a voting record. They voted with Republicans. They voted with Democrats. And I think voters are telling us also that, they don't want erratic behavior. They want somebody that knows them, someone that's come to their community, someone that's come to their neighborhoods, and someone that's come to their charity dinners and other things and supported their kids. So it'll be interesting. But I think the Senate is tough for Dems, and I think the House is a little better for Dems.
All right, we will be right back with more Perino on Politics next. And welcome back to Perino on Politics. Harold, this is a short segment where what I'd like to ask people is, what could I possibly be missing? Like, what are you paying attention to aside from Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day? Is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you have your eye on that gives you a sense of what's going on in the electorate or in the economy?
So two things. First, I call them the two C's. Is there ceasefire and there are other cuts, rate cuts. I think that benefits an incumbent, whomever the incumbent may be, because we'll say she one day, but he is able to generate the attention, and rightly so, whomever the president might be. The second thing that I'm looking at is I want to figure out on this abortion issue how many people are new voters and will be new voters in this thing. So you look what happened a week or two ago in Louisiana, where the state passed a law saying that abortion drugs they reclassified them in a way. Does that inspire a group of young women, and for that matter, young men also, to say, you know what, we're going to come out and vote because we can't risk this? That I will be looking closely at that. But the cuts, the rate cut and ceasefire. I do, as much as I think James Carville is in my generation in politics was the guy that won in more states, and obviously he's in the Hall of Fame because he's got a 2-term president, Bill Clinton. I'm not sure you forget about Gaza, but I do think that the focus on the economy is the most important thing.
100%.
And your focus on that at the start of the show, and even that's where the focus has to be.
Call a cabinet meeting. At least get something. You got to get some earned media somewhere. But the other thing is the president's got this debate at the end of the month, but he's going to Europe for a week or so because he's going to Normandy, and then he has the G7, and then he's going to California from there, which is a long trip, to a big fundraiser that the Clintons are going to have for him out there, and Terry McAuliffe has a big fundraiser for him. When's he going to debate prep? Hello.
I'll tell you this: it's going to be interesting to see that G7. If there's a big, big announcement around the ceasefire, it could really be.
I hope there is some results.
If he does not, he's got to do well in the debate. Not only from the standpoint of how independents are going to think about him, but I think it's fair. People are saying this. Democrats are going to be looking at between that time and August with the convention if he's the right. I think he is. Don't get me wrong, but if he does not perform well, well, certainly
then it's
that
like
chatter volume of that chatter will only increase.
And I should be clear, I am for results. I don't want a ceasefire for ceasefire's sake. I would love Hamas to be eliminated, hostages returned, and then we can talk ceasefire.
No. And
I don't want to leave people with the impression that it's just like I want a ceasefire.
No. I'm going to say this. I want the same thing. I'm public. I've been very clear about this.
We're on the same page.
We're exactly on the same page. So I don't think they're going to. I'm not saying negotiate and leave the hostages. Leave Hamas configured as they are with the power that they know. By no means.
Hey, don't at us anyway.
Exactly.
All right, there's a quick one-question, multiple-choice quiz. Memorial Day was first established in 1868 to honor the Union soldiers who died during the Civil War. But what was the original name for the holiday? A, Tributes Day, B, the National Day of Honor, or C, Decoration Day?
B?
It's C, Decoration Day. It was the first called Decoration Day for people across the nation to decorate the graves of fallen soldiers with flowers.
That makes sense.
And there you have it. Thank you, Harold Ford Jr., crowd
Thank you
favorite.
for having me.
Okay.
Good to be with you.
Listen ad-free with a Fox News Podcast Plus subscription on Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Prime members can listen to this show ad-free on the Amazon Music app.